Welcome to another episode of Times Square Kung Fu. I am your host, Frankie Balboa, aka the Shogun Supreme.
And I'm Peter Glagowski. Today we're going to be taking a look at the WellGO USA release of Bad City, directed by Kensuke Sonomura. It's going to be hitting store shelves on September 19th.
And I'm telling you guys, man, this director is an amazing upcoming director that has long ties to the video game industry, man. It's going to be a good episode, man. Let's get into it. Now, before we get into this episode, man, I have to give a massive shout out to the amazing folks over at WellGO USA, man, who provided us a review copy of this fantastic release of Bad City. And again, they be showing me a lot of love. Like I say, man, show me some love and I'll show you guys some love right back. Now, this film, I want to get this out of the way, and me and Peter was talking about this, is that it's a 2-hour film and it's very drama heavy. But when the action happens, it happens. And I know me and Peter was talking about this a lot.
Yeah, it's not that the drama is like dry or uninteresting. It's just that if you played the Yakuza series of games, you'll know where it's going. And a lot of it's just like the back and forth. They're talking, they're dealing with whatever the heck they need to get the plot moving. And then the action just like kind of erupts and it's exciting. And the choreography is very gritty and grounded and all.
Yeah, and again, this director has a very, has a long history in making action choreography for video games like Vanquish, Metal Gear Solid Revengeance. I mean, his list goes on, and especially the legendary Devil May Cry 3 and 4. So the action in this film, which we're going to touch upon later on in this video, it's very different and unique and very street grimy, like like Peter mentioned, it's very refreshing. But the story, Peter, like, it was hard for us to put this part together because this is pretty much a drama, like from the beginning to end. And it's funny because you told me that you're not too versed in B cinema films or even Japanese action films, and the first thing you mentioned when you saw them was the Yakuza games.
Yeah, and interestingly enough, when we were going through this guy's list of credits, he did the action choreography for Yakuza 4.
Right,
and,
I didn't know that. You know about the other games, but I didn't know that one, so it makes sense.
Yeah, there's one scene later on in the movie, I was like, this is the restaurant from Yakuza 4, isn't it? and very well could be. But,
yeah, people are pretty much used to those games, the way they flow, they're going to enjoy this film.
Yeah, it's very much, when the Yakuza series, it even has that same kind of flow. Like, the Yakuza series, you'll get into a big fight, and it'll be like 20 solid minutes of you whooping butt and stuff. Then it's just some dialogue for a while, and they're laying the floor for what the main plot will be. And Bad City kind of follows that same rhythm.
Right, and Bad City has a very straightforward plot, but they try to overcomplicate it in a way. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's my biggest criticism with the movie. Not that the plot is poorly written or whatever, but it feels contrived at times. Like, certain characters will come back later in the movie, and you're like, you had nothing to do with anything. Why are you here? And it's just because, I guess, they just had to have them.
Right, and I'm going to touch upon the actors before you break down the plot for them, but they have a famously known V cinema actor in this film, and Hitoshi Ozawa, your boy, and if you guys are not familiar with V cinema, and I'm going to touch, there he goes, man.
He's right there. Our boy Kuze.
Yeah, so Hitoshi Ozawa is a V cinema legend. He's been in the DOA franchise, Wadu, Gozu, like a beast. I mean, the man has a long history in these action films, and V cinema is a toy line of action type films, straight to video, small theater runs and stuff like that. So he's a legend in action cinema Japan. It has Tak Sakaguchi from Versus, Death Trance Reborn, Masanori Mimoto, that he was in Hydra, and Kensuke's first film, which I love. It came out in 2019, and they picked the right actors for this film, especially for a plot in this film where everybody's like grunting. So Peter, let us know the plot of this film, because it's straightforward pretty much.
Yeah, even I watched it with the original Japanese dialogue, and I have no problem following that since I've played many of the Yakuza games. But as you were mentioning, if you're not well versed in these films, it might be a good idea to listen to the English dub, because there's a lot of back and forth and twists and turns and a bunch of names to keep track of.
Right, right. And like I told you before we started watching this video, I said, yo, the English dub is really good. Switch to it.
Yeah, I took a quick sample, and I mean, it's solid. Like, I'm not one for English dubs, so to me, it's going to sound like poison, but it's actually not that bad.
I love them, especially a film like this, but it's really hard to replicate the tone and the attitude of Hitoshi, who has a very distinctive voice. But the dub is not that bad. I mean, it's very, if you guys love watching those early 90s or late 90s animes, it has that type of tone, even the way it was mixed and recorded.
Yeah, the sound quality is like... we'll get into that more later, but even in the stereo mix, it's just like very good.
Right, right. But the story is because I told you you're gonna explain it, because I'm gonna do the most hood explanation of this joint. Because we were practicing and I'm like, dude, you do it, bro, because I'm gonna butcher it. People be like, what?
So essentially, a corrupt businessman played by the legendary Lily Frankie, he's running for mayor of a fictional town called Kaiko City, and there's previous links of corruption to his whole organization, and he's also teaming up with the South Korean mob, which isn't like necessarily known by the public at large, but the police are catching wind of it. So they bring in Inspector Terada, who's played by Ozawa, because, you know, as they say in the film, you need an animal to catch an animal, and Terada's in jail on the suspected murder of one of the South Korean mob members. So they get him out, and he's like, I'm gonna whoop some ass. That's basically it. He sets up his team, and they go out to whoop some ass.
Right. And when they do that, you see this journey, and it goes back to what we started about. This is a 2-hour film. It's drama heavy, and you're gonna get some cop stuff. A lot of sitting down in restaurants, coffee shops, and everybody very tired.
Lots of smoking and people just not looking at each other while talking.
Right, like they get very, very detailed about the case, how they plan it, how they're gonna go about it, and when they catch an enemy, you see the interrogation process, and then more of it, and then you see the hunt. So that's pretty much how it repeats the film. Once they finish one hunt, how are we gonna go about it? They throw plot twists here and there, and it keeps building up. But I gotta give them credit, because every time they go for the hunt, the action keeps getting better and longer. Better and longer.
Yeah, yeah. There's a very... While the plot doesn't necessarily have much tension, per se, the escalation of action feels very natural. It's not just, well, the middle scene is the best one and everything else is, like, bookending it. No, like, the first scene's a little simple. It's cool, don't get me wrong, but, like, it's basic and it's based on the environment they're in. But then, like, the next scene has way more people and they're using even more of the environment to their advantage. And then by the last scene, it's, like, a gigantic brawl.
It looks straight out of Yakuza.
Yeah. Again, I thought it was like the Millennium Tower.
Right, right. And they did a great job of, especially the way the film starts with Tak. There's not a spoiler, this is in the trailer. Walking around all slouchy, and he doesn't speak in this film. And just goes barrage poking ASAP. So it gives you a taste where the action is going to go in this film. Now, my problem with the way they can be in the universe, and I'm speaking from a different point of view, because like I mentioned to you, my friend fell asleep watching this film. You know, I enjoyed it. Is they do a good job of displaying this fictional city. The way they show, you know, most of the times it's indoors, but I like the vibe and the ambience. It makes it feel very much alive.
Yeah, and the color grading specifically. At first, I was like, why is it all kind of like green? But it's very consistent with that, and It's like at times neon soaked, but other times it's very gritty and kind of dark, and
Especially
that's
at
the
nighttime.
vibe.
Yeah, and one thing that I noticed, like I mentioned earlier, he has a strong background to gaming, especially the Metal Gear franchise. The first thing that stood out to me, it looks like Metal Gear 1 on the PS1.
Yeah,
Or
which
even
also had a very like green kind of tint.
yeah, with the green tint, grayish, dry, metallic tone. So I'm like, there he goes, this director using his background in gaming. And it shows in his film because, again, the first thing that came to your mind was Yakuza.
Yeah, I mean, not even because Kuze is the main character, but it just, and not even because it just deals with the Yakuza like kind of mob warfare thing. It's structured and paced exactly like one of those games.
Right, and I mean, as much as I like the atmosphere and the way they display this fictional town, the movie is called Bass City, and it's saying this town is really intense, like 1980s New York City intense, 70s, 80s New York, but they don't convey that at all.
No, yeah, to me, I would have liked to see more of the actual streets of the city because a lot of it, like you said, is indoors, so you're shuffling around from one indoor location to another, and you do get some glimpses, like the aforementioned restaurant that looks like Yakuza 4, but for the most part, you're not out in the streets, so it doesn't feel like it had to be a city.
Right, because it was mostly focused on this case, and boy, did they made it focus on this case.
Yeah, you'll know the case for sure.
And my con with the story of this film, again, like my friend Luch saw it. He was falling asleep, and it's a film that he likes that is very similar and also in length. Is the Korean film The Witch Part One: Subversion. I didn't like that film, but he loves it. So I was like, let me see what he enjoyed about The Witch Subversion. I saw it again because I'm going like I enjoy this film. And when I saw this, for the third time, The Witch Subversion, it stood out to me what this film is missing in the story and why he enjoyed that film. This film is missing tension.
Yeah, which I touched on a little bit before, but there's just, because it's so focused on that investigative aspect, you don't get a real sense that like these villains are coming down on the cops or like the cases they're up against extreme odds. They just move from investigation to investigation.
Right, especially when they had a loss in the film. They just go like, hey man, remember what I told you? Don't smile. Don't show any emotions. It's similar to the Training Day segment. You can't show these tears in the streets, man, or smiles or whatever. I forgot that quote that Alonzo tells,
Yeah.
But actually, Officer Hoy, when he discovered the street. But anyway, it was like patch it up, and they didn't show that moment like that death was something. Especially when they have an encounter for a way to be like, oh, we're gonna handle this now. No, it was like, it's just another Tuesday on some M. Bison stuff. With all that said, you know how we do, we keep it real, both of us. I love this film. I mean, you loved it, Peter.
I'm a little mixed on it, but I did enjoy it, and I do think it's well worth watching because the action is very good. So now that we've broken down the story and the action choreography, we're going to get into how the disc looks. And in typical WellGO fashion, it's great. I mean, there's not really a lot to even criticize.
I mean, it looks fantastic.
Yeah. There's no 4K version of it, but honestly, like, I thought it was 4K. Like, it's wild actually, how clear this disc looks.
And WellGO USA is very good with their encoding. I forgot to speak to the rep at WellGO. I met the guy who does the encoding over there. Fantastic gentleman, and boy, they got a wizard in their hands because I did a comparison on Twitter with their release of Sakura versus the German release, the 4K. And the German release is sharper, but it's not something you should go out of your way and get because the WellGO one looks very good.
Yeah.
Already. So WellGO does a fantastic job. I mean, I could put that movie on to anybody here my TV and say, hey, there's a 4K Dolby Vision because of the colors and the saturation, the way they did it.
Yeah, I mean, even the colors are like. I mean, I know specifically it's not Dolby Vision, but I'm picky about that stuff. So, but even so, in some of the shots, there's like a bokeh kind of depth of field thing going on, and you can still see those background details because I don't know what they shot this on, but it is phenomenal looking.
It is ridiculous, and I wouldn't be surprised they probably use, shot in 6K or in a red camera, something similar. Like if this was shot on an iPhone, I'll be like, oh my god.
Yeah, if this was shot on an iPhone, I need to start shooting movies.
Like, yo, but nah, it had to be one of those cameras. It looks too freaking good. Probably was shot in 4K or something. It's definitely not a 2K film. It doesn't look like it.
No. I mean, there's no real digital effects. Like maybe some of the fire, like the gunshots or whatever, but not a whole lot of that.
Yeah, I mean the transfer looks amazing. It's not surprising because when I ripped this disc, it's a beefy file size for Blu-ray.
Yeah, it's like 38 gig or something.
Yeah, they maxed out that dual layer. What is it? Dual layer on Blu-ray is like what, 50 gigs?
50 gigs, yeah.
Yeah, they definitely pushed it. It's a beefy disc, man, and it looks fantastic. And the audio, bro. The audio.
Yeah, the audio is. I mean, I don't have a full surround setup, but I tested the 5.1 mix and then the stereo one, and while obviously the 5.1 is a little clearer and whatnot, even the stereo mix is very well separated, has lots of depth. The bass is rumbling.
Bass in this film, there's some good bass. I got to test this, on my bad boys here, the Yamahas, and I also got to test it at my friend's Luch's house, who I appreciate because he has a good 9.2 setup. He has a banging Yamaha receiver, Polk audio speakers, LSI, so you already know the works, man. And good channel transitions, good mix. But we were surprised with the subwoofer. When the bodies hit the floor, it has a good, meaty bass and smoky. It's really good, man. So, again, as WellGO always, man, they crush it, man. Shout out to you guys. You guys are killing it and show people how it's done. And you know me, before we wrap this video up, the English dub. I'm an English dub guy. If a film is very long, I'm like, I gotta watch the English dub because I want to get a good idea of the story. I don't want to feel lost, and then I watch it again with the original audio. Of course, recommend the original audio for this film because my man's voice is so distinctive and unique. You have to experience it. But I did a good job with the English dub in this release. I mean, you got a few tastes of it. You thought it was okay, but for you, it's poison.
Yeah. I mean, I'm always gonna have that where I'm like, can't listen to this, but it's not badly done, and quality-wise too. I mean, it sounds just as well mixed as the Japanese one. Like, there's no real difference in terms of that quality.
I mean, the only difference you're gonna get with English dub, and it's, is usually the case when they dub a film, especially they do a 5.1 mix, is not as good, believe it or not, the channel mixing as the original dub. Yeah. Like, you're not going to get too much transitions. Like, I did a good video of that when I did my Project Wolf hunting video, which I recommend, released by WellGO USA as well. The English dub sounds amazing. I heard worse. And this one, they did a great job, man.
Yeah, it doesn't make me, like, retch and anger or fear or anything. Like.
Right. With all that said, and we're going to mention it, you think if someone ever saw this film, should it buy this physical right away?
I don't believe the price is over $20 even, so I would say yes.
I'm gonna say something, and I know a lot of you guys who watch this channel are physical media buyers, and usually I'll say, it's a rental, but for me, the price is not that steep. It's under $20, and you're gonna get a beautiful looking film.
Yeah, beautiful. Even as a tech demo, say you're like, oh, I hate this movie, then the disc looks great, it sounds great, so.
Right, and when a film has an amazing sound mix, picture quality, I highly have to recommend it because, we're in the age where a lot of stuff is becoming streaming exclusive. And also, well, you guys don't discover a lot of actors here because once you watch this film, you might find an actor that you might enjoy, and when you go to the Letterboxd IMDb, you're gonna find some films that you might actually gonna be, oh my god, I never knew this thing existed. And Japanese action style of cinema is very different from what you saw from Hong Kong and America. It's like a mixture of both. But one thing that I really enjoy about V cinema, and I got like a bunch of tapes that I'm going through. Like, I have a ton thanks to this Japanese follower of mine who sent me a lot of good stuff here, man. I've been posting more and more on this on my Twitter, and I'm gonna share this with you guys, and we're gonna cover more V cinema joints. I'm gonna show you, Peter, the amazing world of V cinema, because one thing I love about V cinema films is they have a certain noir, gritty look, something that is very similar to the Death Wish films. Those films from the 80s in America, those grimy, disgusting films where you can smell the piss of the streets.
Yeah.
So yeah, I highly recommend buying this film, and it's a looker. I love this film. So definitely buy it, man. So that's definitely a wrap, man. As always, fellas, man, like, share, subscribe, and until the next one. Peace.